Today, I'm going to be showing you how you can make custom zombies in Fortnite. To do this, I'm going to be basing it off of our already released zombies content. The link to that video is going to be the first link in the description below. Also, sorry if my voice is a little off. I'm a little sick at the moment. Alright, let's go ahead and jump straight into the tutorial. So the first thing I want to do is load my project with the zombie content already in it. This will be designed in a way where you can actually use the script for any sort of spawners, so it doesn't need to specifically use the other zombies code that we've already made. But let's go ahead and create a new verse file by right-clicking and hitting create new verse file, then calling this our custom zombie manager and hitting create. Now I want to go ahead and open up this script. In our script here, the first thing that we want to do is make an editable array of zombie spawners so that we can track both when they spawn and when zombies are eliminated. So to do this, I'll just make an editable and I'll call this our zombie spawners, and it's going to be an array of creature spawner device, and we'll just initialize it with an empty array. Now what we want to do with these zombie spawners is go under on begin. We want to go through every single zombie spawner by using a for loop. So for every single spawner in our zombie spawners array, then we want to take events from this spawner. So if we look at our creature spawner device, we have a spawned event and an eliminated event. So in this, we want to write spawner.spawned event .subscribe, and then we'll make a function called onSpawned. So now I'll go down here, call this onSpawned. If we look back in the digest, we'll see that the spawned event sends an agent. So we'll just receive the zombie agent, which is going to be of type agent. And then for now, I'm just going to put a block here because I also want to get the eliminated event. So I'll just go ahead and duplicate this, except for change the spawned event to eliminated event and change the function from onSpawned to onEliminated. Now let's go ahead and make this function called onEliminated. And in this, if we go back to our digest, we see this takes a device AI interaction result. So this is what we need to receive. So I'll call it our result, and it's of that type. So now let's start working with our onSpawned. In this, the first thing we want to do is get the fourth character of our zombie so that we can hide our zombie. So we'll say if our fourth character is equal to zombie agent.get fourth character, like so. And here we're going to get an error because we need to use characters. So just simply copy that and paste it up here at the top of our file. Now to hide the zombie, we want to write fc.hide. It's that simple. Now the zombie will be hidden as soon as they're spawned and they'll be invisible. Now what we want to do is we want to spawn a prop and we want to move it to the zombie's location. So to be able to spawn a prop at first, we're going to need a creative prop asset that we can actually spawn. So I'll make an editable here, and I'll call this our zombie or custom prop 1, and it's of type creative prop asset. And you actually initialize these with a prop, so I'll just write our default creative prop asset like so. So now this is a prop asset that we can now spawn as many times as we'd like. To actually spawn a prop, we want to go down here and we want to use the built-in function called spawn prop. And then if we look at this in the digest, let's go ahead and search for spawn prop. It takes a creative prop asset, a position, and a rotation. So we'll write first our asset, custom prop 1. then a position. So for this, we want to get the zombie's position. So to do that, we'll write fc.getTransform.translation, and then the same thing except for the rotation. So dot rotation. The next thing we need to do is actually get the prop that was spawned. So if you look at spawn prop, you can see that it actually returns something whenever this function is called, and it's a tuple where we have an optional creative prop and then a spawn prop result. This is the prop that we want to receive. So what we'll do is first go ahead and assign a value to this. So I will say our new prop is equal to the spawn prop, but this isn't simply going to be our creative prop. It is a tuple, so it has both an optional creative prop and a spawn prop result. So to get the first element in that tuple, which is the prop that we want, we'll just put a 0 in parentheses at the end here. The only other problem we run into is that was an optional creative prop, as you can see by the question mark. So to convert this into a non-optional, we need to put this in an if statement, like so, and then we'll get an error because we need to add a question mark here at the end so that it actually properly converts the optional. And just like that, this is now an actual prop that we can now manipulate in verse. So the next thing that we need to do is call a function that's going to constantly move this prop to the zombie's location. So to do that, we'll call this our move or track zombie, and we want to send it this prop as well as our zombie agent. And we also want to spawn this function like so. Now let's go down here and create that function. So track zombie is going to take in our prop of type creative prop, and then an agent, which is going to be our zombie's agent or type agent. It needs to suspend because we're going to have a loop in this function, and we don't need to return anything, so we can just return void. Now in this, we want to just go ahead and start a loop like so and sleep for 0 seconds. Now before the loop, I actually want to go ahead and get the 4 characters. So I'll copy this line, we'll read that up here, and then just change the agent to the agent that we have in this function. Now, every single tick in our loop, we now just want to first get the zombie's position. So I'll write FC is equal to, or no. So I'll write our zombie position is equal to, and then I'll just go ahead and copy how we got the position up here, and then do the same thing but for the rotation. So now we have the position and the rotation of the zombie. We want to move this prop to that location, and to do that, I'll write prop.move2, and then we want to move it to the zombie position and then the zombie rotation like so, but move 2 also requires a time, so I'll just write 0.1, and then I also am going to spawn this function so that it always is updating rather than waiting for the prop to move before getting the new location. Just like that, whenever our zombie spawns, we are going to hide the zombie and then spawn a prop at the zombie's location. Then we're going to constantly move that prop to the zombie's location. But we also want this prop to go away whenever the zombie is eliminated, and we want this loop to end as well. So to do that, I'll actually create a race. Go ahead and tab our loop once so that it's under this race, and then make a block where in this we say fc.eliminated event dot await, and here I spelled event wrong, or I had the capital, there we go. So what this will do is just wait for the FC, which in this case is our zombie, to be eliminated, and then whenever the zombie is eliminated, we want to dispose of the prop, so we'll just write prop.dispose. And then finally we want to return, which as it says right here, will terminate the current function. So it'll end this race and this loop will stop. This also means that this eliminated event is actually not required, and I go ahead and get rid of that because we're tracking the elimination here. All right, now let's go ahead and test this out in game. So if I go back into UEFN, build verse code, then I will drag our new custom zombie manager into the play space, add all of our zombie spawners. Then I need to select a custom prop. So for this, I'm just going to go ahead and upload an asset that I have that I've downloaded for free. I'll put the link to the asset in the description below. It comes with a lot of really nice animations. As you can see, I've imported my skeletal mesh with all of the different animations. Now what I want to do is hit right click, blueprint class, create a building prop, and name this our Ninja BP. And then I'm also going to add the animation type. So I'll say walk at the end. Now I want to open this up. Click add a skeletal mesh. Then in this, go ahead and select my skeletal mesh that I imported. And then in animation to play, I'm going to select the animation that I want. Now the last thing I want to do is go ahead and scale this down to the size I want. Then hit compile and save. Drag it into the game so I can see the relative size. And as long as I'm happy with that, one more thing that I do want to make sure is that my prop here is facing the x-axis, which you can see in this bottom corner, which it is not. So I'll make sure to go ahead and rotate that so it is facing towards that direction. Then hit compile again, save, and now I can go back into my device and select this prop here as my custom prop. So now if I go ahead and push changes, we'll see what this looks like. All right, so now in game, you can see all of the zombies and now have a prop that is overlaying them and constantly moving to them, so it kind of replaces the zombie. Obviously, there are some issues, so let's go ahead and fix this. The first of which is they're floating. So that's a pretty big issue. What we can do to fix this is either change the position that they're teleporting to in verse, or what I find is easier is to actually just go into your prop and then move the prop down in the blueprint relative to how much. So they were floating by quite a bit. So I think changing that about that much and then pushing changes should do the trick. Alright, so now back in game, you can see they are no longer floating. They could be a little bit lower, but the same process, you would just move it down in the blueprint and then push changes. The next issue we have is that they are always walking and they're not really attacking the player, so we'll need to add different animations. So let's go ahead and do that. I will end game and go back to the verse code. So because we cannot actually control animations on spawn props, we're going to have to use multiple different props. So to do this, I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this creative prop asset and create a new one. And this one is going to be used for an attacking animation. So the first thing we need to do is actually spawn that prop whenever we spawn the initial prop. So to do that, I'm going to change this if statement so that we can include multiple things easier by changing how the syntax is done, like so. And then I'm going to duplicate this line, change this to new prop 2, and then instead of spawning our custom prop 1, I'm going to spawn our custom prop 2. So now we have a second prop that's going to spawn at the zombie's location whenever they're spawned. And then whenever we're tracking the zombie, I'm also going to go ahead and send it the new prop 2 as well. And then in this function, we need to receive a second prop like so. Now where we go ahead and move our first prop, let's go ahead and duplicate that, but also move our second prop. So now we have a second prop that's following the zombie at the exact same time. But how do we know when to switch between these props? Well, to do that, we first want to go through every single player in the play space by using a for loop, getting the play space, and then getting all of the players in that play space. So this will go through every single player. Then we want to go ahead and get the distance between that player and our zombie agent. So to do that, we need to get both of their positions, which means we need to convert this player to a Fort character. So I'll just say player FC is equal to player dot get Fort character. And now we want to get the distance between both positions. So first, I'll go ahead and add these positions above this loop. So we go ahead and have the zombie position here instead of having to redo it. And then we can just say our new distance is equal to the distance, which is a built-in function between the player's position. So player fc.getTransform.translation and the zombie's position, which we already have up here. We'll get an error here because we need to include spatial math in order to use the distance function. So let's go ahead and just add that up top. Now we have this new distance. We want to check if the new distance is less than a specific amount. So if the new distance is less than 200, then we will go ahead and show our prop2. So prop2.show, which is going to be our attacking animation. And then we'll write else, and we want prop1.show. Or just prop.show. And then we also want to hide the other prop. So prop1.hide here, or prop.hide, and prop2.hide down here. The issue with this is it's going to check this for every single player, which we don't want. We only actually want this to check for the closest player. So before we even check the distance, we actually want to find the closest player. To do this, I can add it here in this loop, but I'm actually just going to create a separate function for it. So I'll write get closest player, and it's going to take a Fort character. So it'll take the Fort character of our zombie, and then it'll actually return another Fort character, which will be the closest player. So in this, we want to go ahead and go through every single player in get play space dot get players, the same as we did earlier. So I'm actually just going to copy the rest of this. I'm also going to copy the distance line here, but here we get an error because we need to be returning our Fort character. So what I'll do is I'll just go down here and return our Fort character for now, just to handle the errors for now. Here we get another error because we don't have a zombie position in this function. So let's go ahead and make one. So zombie position is equal to Fort character dot get transform dot translation. And now we need to get the closest player. So we have the distance of every player. So what we're going to do is make a variable called our closest player, and it's going to be of type optional Fort character because we want it to be able to fail if there is no players in the game. And then we also want to set a default distance, or the closest distance, of type float, and this will be the maximum range. So I'll just make this a very high number like so. And then what we want to do is whenever we go through every single player, we want to check if the new distance is less than the closest distance. And if it is, then we want to set our closest player or equal to the player that is closer. And we also want to set the closest distance equal to our new distance. So now after this code runs, it's going to change this distance to the closest distance out of all the players in the game, as well as this will be our closest player. So now all we need to do is write if new closest player is equal to closest player, because we'll need to convert this back into a normal for character because currently this is an optional. Then we just want to go ahead and return this new closest player. And just like that, we now have this function that'll get the closest player from a for character. So we can remove this line up here and instead write closest player, and then we go ahead and call this get closest player function like so, and we need to send it our zombies for character. Then we need to go ahead and get the distance between the closest player and our zombie, and we can then do the check. And the last thing we need to do is go ahead and also dispose of our prop 2 whenever the zombie is eliminated. And boom, just like that, we now have an attacking animation. So to set this up, I'm going to build verse code. And in our device, we now have a custom prop 2. So let's go ahead and create that by hitting right click, blueprint class, building prop, calling this our Ninja BP attack. Then opening this up, adding our skeletal mesh, selecting the ninja, and then adding our attack animation that we want, and then finally changing the scale down to what we want and ensuring that it faces the x-axis. Then just go ahead and select this as the custom prop 2 and push changes. Alright, so now in game, whenever a zombie gets close enough to a player, it will play the attack animation and then go back as soon as they get far enough away from the player. The other issue that we're having here is we forgot to move the prop down, the same as in the walking prop, but that'll just be the same process. You want to go into the blueprint and manually move it down so that the mesh is lower in the prop blueprint. But just like that, we now have custom zombies, which you can add to any map you'd like. If you found this video helpful, please make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you all for the support, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.